What's happening, everybody, on this Wednesday, August 20th, 2025? My name is Kevin Smith. Thank you all so much for tuning into Loud Majority Live. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. Gavin Newsom continues to surge in the Democratic polls as he has actually begun investing in his social media game, which is something that is incredibly important. There's a lot of people in politics that don't understand the value of social media, as I found out on the phone yesterday. But Gavin Newsom obviously is starting to get it as media narratives continue to collapse left and right. J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth go and visit the troops in Union Station, protecting Washington, D.C. An illegal immigrant thinks he's going to run from 5 police officers, and we're all going to laugh at that. We've got big stuff coming up in the show. But before we get to it, a few of you told me that yesterday's show was a bit intense. And it was. It was really intense, and it's usually not my motif. It's usually not my modus operandi to be that intense, but sometimes things affect me in a very serious way, and the story I read yesterday certainly did that. So we're going to start the show out a little bit differently today. We're going to keep it a little light. We're going to keep it lighthearted. We're going to keep the jokes up. So here's just a video of a woman putting a bunch of really sour pieces of candy inside of her husband's lemonade.
You know they stopped making the Evo, what is it called? Is it the Evo? The little Range Rover, the mini Range Rover. You what the? God damn! Oh, what is wrong with you?
Nigga! This is like fresh lemon juice! Hey, this is a lemonade! Look at this!
It's lemonade!
Hey, no.
You know I like my lemonade a little tart. You be wanting all that.
I mean, look, it's just funny. It's just funny. I was told the show yesterday was a little intense, so now we're going to laugh a little bit because what the hell? What the hell? Yesterday we talked about honor killings in America and how that's a serious problem, and here's just some lady screwing with her husband. Guys, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button. Share the video out all over the place. We are rocking. We are rolling. Oh, is that California Dave in the chat? What's up, Dave? Haven't seen you in a while, bro. How's things, man? How's things? I see you in there. I see you in there. Guys, before we get rocking, before we get rolling, head on over to loudmajorityusa.com. That's loudmajorityusa.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Check out our shop. That is the best way to support this show and everything we've got going on over here. Everything we've got going on over here, guys, hit the thumbs up. Go to loudmajorityusa.com and use promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. That's promo code RUMBLE to get 20% off everything on the website. So, look, Gavin Newsom has really come out of the gate swinging over the course of the last several, I would say, weeks or so, really going after the President of the United States, trying to play on his turf. And he's starting to see some real results in that, not only in the polling, but in his social media presence. For any of you who are on X, I'm sure you've seen the Gavin Newsom press office account that is quickly racking up hundreds of thousands of followers virtually overnight. Now, I would have to say that I think some of that traffic is not necessarily organic because, turns out if you comment on it and you make a snarky comment about Gavin Newsom, you are quickly beaten about the head by a lot of accounts that seem to have been made about 2 weeks ago and all have 315 followers. So people get a little bit upset when they find out that their accounts are, we call them sock puppet accounts in the online sphere. So let's say you were to go onto the Gavin Newsom press office account and you were to post a video reminding the entire world about that time that Gavin Newsom slept with his best friend's wife. Let's say you were to do that. I'm not going to say that I did that or anything.
The question is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. If you can't trust Gavin with his best friend's wife, how can you trust him with your state?
I'm not saying I did that or anything.
The question is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. If you can't trust Gavin with his best friend's wife, how can you trust him with your state?
How can you trust Gavin Newsom with your state if you can't trust him with your wife? Now, of course, some of you may not remember this, but back in 2007, Gavin Newsom admitted to having sex with his campaign manager's wife. His campaign manager also happened to be his lifelong friend. Nice guy. Nice guy. Now, look. I am not going to sit here and pretend that the sexual exploits of Donald Trump have been perfect. I think we all can agree they probably have not been. However, every real man will tell you that wives and mothers are off limits. Wow, or at least they should be in a civilized society. Wives and mothers are off limits. And if you're Italian, probably sisters as well. But Gavin Newsom didn't really care because he only cares about himself. He continues to rise not only in the polls, but in the betting markets. Here was Harry Enton doing a breakdown of that.
Yeah, I think it absolutely has been working in terms of generating attention, which is what he's trying to do, right? I mean, take a look here. Let's take a look right at the @GovPress office followers on X. That's, of course, where you get those sort of the account where Newsom posts those Trump-style mocking types of tweets. Get this. That account, get this, up 450% in terms of the number of followers since mid-June. And it's not just on Twitter, X, where Newsom is gaining. Even on TikTok and Instagram, his followers are up over 1 million since January alone. My goodness gracious. And more than that, Laura, more than that, what about Google? What about those Google searches for him? Get this, daily Google searches for Gavin Newsom up like a rocket. What are we talking about? Since June 1, up 1,300%. Compared to August 1st, look at that, up 500%. So the bottom line is, in politics, especially if you're thinking of entering in 2028, it's all about generating attention. And so far, Gavin Newsom has done a good job at generating attention.
The Democrats want it.
Do Democrats want it? Okay, do Democrats want it? This, I think, is the trend line that I think says it all. Democrats want their leaders to what? Try to stop the GOP or work with the GOP? You go back to 2017, you see here, work with the GOP took the cake at 74% compared to just 23% who said to try and stop the GOP. But now I'm going to come over to your side of the screen, Laura. Look at 2025. I'm coming as close as I can. 57% say they want the Democratic leaders to try and stop the GOP compared to just 42% who say they want them to work with the GOP. That is a major shift. What are we talking about here? Some quick math up here is 34% rise in terms of the percentage of Democrats who want their leaders to try and stop the GOP. So no wonder Gavin Newsom, he's looking at this polling. He's saying, I can generate attention. This is where the Democratic base is. And right now he seems to be following the Democratic base.
Why? For 2028?
For 2028, that is exactly why. And I think the question is it working? Is it working? Well, let's take a look at the betting markets. I think this gives away so much of it. Okay, the chance of being the 2028 Democratic nominee, according to the prediction markets. Look at where we were on June 1st. We basically had a clown car for first. Newsom, AOC, Buttigieg, 11%, 10%, 8%. But look at where we are now. Look at this. Look who's jumped up all the way up to 24% chance, about a 1 in 4 chance of getting the nomination. Gavin Newsom. AOC staying pretty steady at 13%. And then, of course, we have Pete Buttigieg, who has stayed absolutely steady at 8%. So at least at this particular point, the prediction markets are saying, yes, this strategy is paying off. Of course, the key question is, will this actually work when you're trying to actually votes are being cast and counted? And more than that, will it work for a general electorate? Well, it's early days yet. We'll have to wait and see. But so far, Gavin Newsom has done a pretty gosh darn good job of generating attention for himself and a pretty gosh darn good shot of getting people on television like you and I to talk about it.
Look, many people for weeks have been asking the question, who is the leader of the Democrat Party? And I don't think I'd be going out on a limb here when I say that Gavin Newsom has always been the leader of the Democratic Party and is now currently the leader in what is a very, very packed field with that new polling, as Harry Enton pointed out, showing that Gavin Newsom comes in. No, let's see, what do we got here? This is from Politico, which runs a fairly good polling firm, if I do say so. Gavin Newsom coming in with a full 25% of the vote, with Kamala Harris being at 19, Buttigieg at 13, AOC at 10, Tim Walz at 4. Who is that 4%? Below that, names like Booker and Shapiro and Whitmer and Bashir, Klobuchar, Kelly. Who the hell is Kelly? J.B. Pritzker is at 1. Congratulations. I guess he's lowering his A1C. Chris Murphy of Connecticut made his way on that list. And Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado. So look, Gavin Newsom seems to be far and wide with the person with the most momentum moving into 2028. Now look, It's a long ass way away. So let's not pretend this thing is locked up. Let's not pretend there won't be scandal after scandal, because that's what Democrats do. But however, Gavin Newsom right now is the odds-on favorite, and he's doing something that I think is actually incredibly smart. It turns out that the legacy media is really, 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 really upset with this whole Gavin Newsom trolling Donald Trump on Twitter play. They don't like it. They don't like it at all, which tells me it is probably going to work, because every single day, well, look, whether you like the corporate press, whether you don't like the corporate press, it's not really the point. The point is that every single day, they are witnessing more and more people jump off the ship that they are on, and they can't accept the fact that the ship is sinking. The world is online, and if you want to run for office and you don't have an online presence, you basically don't exist. Here's Joe Scarborough saying how bad of an idea this is.
Like, you're trying to do everything to distract the American people from the fact that you're screwing up on job one. And job one is helping working Americans and helping the middle class afford their lives and build a life where their children are going to live better than them. That's the American dream. And you have done nothing but play politics over the past year and a half. It's really not that hard to do.
We'll see.
It's really not. Cut and paste. It's really not hard to do. And I would be telling the Republicans the same thing if Democrats were off over here. It's not hard, but I don't know why like Gavin Newsom, he wants to own Donald Trump. He wants to be Donald Trump light. You can't be Donald Trump light. Hey, Gavin, talk into the camera and talk about making life more affordable, not only for people in California, but if you want to talk about people in New Hampshire, our people in Iowa, our people in South Carolina, they would like to know how their lives can be more affordable. Not how you can own Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not running again. These Democrats, who I have called Chuck Wepner instead of Muhammad Ali, Chuck Wepners, they're the ones that are running again. They're the ones that are in the boxing ring with Democrats, not Donald Trump.
It does seem, and we'll see if Democrats are taking note.
Well, there you go, and there's where you get it wrong. But these corporate Democrats, I will time out. I guess they're not technically corporate Democrats anymore, since their companies sold them off to the same channel as like the Food Network. They're not MSNBC anymore, guys. They're MS Now. MS Now, AIDS later. The jokes just write themselves. They absolutely do. But Joe Scarborough thinks he knows what he's talking about. Now, just to put into context about how badly Joe Scarborough is at this entire thing, Joe Scarborough is a former Republican member of Congress. He was a former Republican member of Congress. And the question has to be, well, if he's a former member, who took his seat? That guy was replaced by Matt Gaetz. Clearly, you don't understand the way the world is working, Joe Scarborough, you hairpiece on television. Clearly, you don't get the way the world works. That if you're not out in front of the media and you're not speaking directly to the people, and social media is the best way to do that, because the only time any of you watch CNN or MSNBC is when I'm making fun of them, is to go directly to them, to go directly online. And you know how I know that? Because every transformative president over the last 100 years has done it via a technological revolution. FDR with the radio, Kennedy with TV, Obama with Facebook, Trump with Twitter. Every single consequential president, leave Reagan. Reagan was a special breed. But every single one of them enjoyed a technological revolution and took advantage of it. There's actually a book I had to read in college called The Obama Victory, and it talks about the 2008 campaign. If you work in politics or you want to work in politics, I would absolutely tell you, you have to read that book. It's absolutely fascinating on how they were able to manipulate the social media algorithms and basically just pump fundraising dollars directly to the Obama campaign. Look, I don't like Obama, but it was a brilliant Brilliant tactic from a purely political standpoint. Now, look, I know I'm not a political consultant. Oh, wait, I am. Yeah, so when you see things that work, it doesn't matter who did them, you figure out how to make it work to your benefit. One way things would continue to work to people's benefits if they actually embraced what people seem to like. And J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth did that today when they went down to visit the troops protecting us in Union Station. We're going to get to that in 1 second. Before we do that, Mike Lindell.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our first ever mega sale on overstock clearance and brand new products. For example, save over 50% on this season's flannel sheets. Queen size only $59.98. Kings only $69.98. They sell out fast every year, so order now. Save 20% on our brand new My Crosses. They're designed in the likeness of the one I've worn every day for over 20 years. They come in men's and women's, and they're made right here in the USA. Get our 2025 six-piece My Towel sets for only $29.98. Our initial quantities are extremely low, so get them now before they go. And our best-selling standard My Pillows, just $14.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to take advantage of our first ever mega sale. But wait, remember that $75 free shipping rule? Well, that ship is sailed because right now, every order ships absolutely free.
Guys, head on over to MyPillow.com, promo code LOUD. That's MyPillow.com. Promo code LOUD for up to 80% off everything on the website. That's MyPillow.com. Promo code LOUD. So, Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance decided that they were going to go down and visit some of the troops, you know, the ones that all the white people on TV don't want in Washington, D.C., but that the ones that the black residents of D.C. actually love having there because it turns out it's actually making their lives safer. Here was the vice president.
Right. We have more officials now coming up the steps, and there is the vice president.
Eddie, come here. So, we decided to bring the Secretary of Defense and Stephen Miller to bring you guys over. We appreciate everything that you're doing. So, you guys bust your ass all day, we give you a hamburger. Not a fair trade, but we're grateful for everything you guys do. So, how long have you guys been working here at this area? Has it been the whole 9 days?
About 7.
It's been about 7. Okay. General, tell me what's going on here. What are you guys seeing? Okay.
And that is what real leadership looks like. Actually going down to say, look, oh, it was a photo op. Everything in politics is a photo op. The difference is that I actually believe that J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth wanted to be there. They actually wanted to be there. Of course, they were greeted by some of the, most useless people in America. Here was the vice president talking about that.
Of what? That D.C. has a terrible crime problem? You just got to look around. Obviously, D.C. has a terrible crime problem. The Department of Justice statistics back it up. The FBI statistics back it up. Just talk to a resident of this city, this beautiful, great American city. Don't they deserve... we talk about human rights. We hear these people outside screaming, free D.C. Let's free D.C. from lawlessness. Let's free Washington, D.C. from one of the highest murder rates in the entire world. Let's free Washington, D.C. so that young families can walk around and feel safe and secure. That's what we're trying to free D.C. from. And as Stephen said, it's kind of bizarre that we have a bunch of old, primarily white people who are out there protesting the policies that keep people safe when they've never felt danger in their entire lives.
And look, I'm not for identity politics, but you know what? Throw that crap directly back in their faces. Now, who is JD talking about? These genuinely awful white people that were protesting him? Oh, well, luckily we got some footage of that.
Fuck you, Pete. Fucking Nazis.
And climate justice!
Fuckers!
Get the fuck
out of my city!
As my good friend Matt Gaetz once said, these people are odious on the inside and out. Speaking of Matt Gaetz, congratulations to Matt and his lovely wife Ginger on the birth of their child today. Congratulations, guys, as always. But he was right. These people are odious on the inside and out. Imagine that. First off, I would be shocked if any of those people actually live in D.C. proper. They probably live in Northern Maryland or in Southern Maryland or Northern Virginia, which is why they're at Union Station in the first place. But, you know, guys, crime's not a problem in Washington, D.C. Don't you know that? Don't you know that? Crime is not a problem in Washington, D.C. It just isn't. You know, except for when... I don't know. Except for when, you know, you pull somebody over and they immediately decide to start running away from the vehicle. Because nothing screams, I'm not a criminal, like running away from 6 cops. And before we continue, this guy's going to yell and he's going to scream. He's going to say, somebody translated it. I have a job. I live here with a family. I'm not a criminal. Well, you know what kind of people run away from cops? Criminals.
¡Señor! ¡Yo no, por favor! ¡Yo no debo nada, papi! ¡Yo no debo nada! 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 ¡Yo estoy trabajando! ¡Yo no debo nada! 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 ¡Yo no debo nada!
And look, that footage is tough to watch, and I'm sure the left will play it on loop over and over and over again, you know, about how awful this administration is. Of course, they're not going to bring up the fact that about 5 minutes ago, somebody on the FBI's 10 most wanted list was captured. A woman named Cindy Rodriguez Singh, who was wanted for allegedly, y'all ready for this? Murdering her 6-year-old son. Why? Because she believed he was possessed by a demon. And why did she believe that? Well, because he was cross-eyed. He had several disabilities, including being cross-eyed and having a chronic lung disease, which required regular treatment. Rodriguez Singh reportedly shunned her son as evil and possessed by a demon. She was allegedly to have abused the boy by depriving him of water and food to avoid having to change his diapers. Yeah, that's brilliant. Shortly before her disappearance, she claimed to have sold her son to another woman in a Fiesta Mart. What the hell is that? Oh, it's a grocery store chain in Texas. Okay. That was a little weird. In early November 2022, she applied for a passport for her and her son, not including for her and her children, but didn't include the youngest child. According to her sister, she feared that protective services would take away her other children, which had occurred before. So she decided that she would kill her 6-year-old son. A welfare check was conducted on the family home March 20 of 2023. She falsely told police that her son was living in Mexico with relatives of her father who had been deported. But 2 days later, on March 22nd, her husband, who is the kid's stepfather, stole $10,000 from his workplace, $8,000 of which he deposited directly into a bank on the same day. Him and his 6 other children drove to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, where they boarded a flight to Istanbul. Once again, our NATO allies over in Turkey doing yeoman's work. Of course, that's a joke. Turkey should not be anywhere near the West. No, they might not be in NATO. EU, excuse me. An Amber Alert was put out for the son, and she was shortly indicted for capital murder. Well, she is now off the FBI's most wanted list because they found her living in India. So she will be on her way back. Luckily for her, Texas handles these things appropriately, and she will soon be put to death. She will soon be put to death. Now, the left won't talk about that sort of thing. They'll just yell about this Hispanic guy yelling on the ground about how he's got a family. All right, well, take them back with you, bro. This is just one more of the things we absolutely voted for. But if you tell people, well, you don't have to be separated from your family. You can take them back to the country from whence you came. The media will call you a racist. But there aren't actually, I mean, there's some, I'm sure there's some like inbred fuck living in West Virginia that's like part of the Klan. There's like 2,000 of them in the country. But according to Bata Sarga, I say her name wrong every time. Bata Ungar. Yeah, I screw her name up every time. She's hilarious. She goes on CNN to dispel the notion that there are just radical racists all over the place. We'll get to that in 1 second before we do Old Glory Bank.
When big banks decide who gets access to America's financial systems and who doesn't, who do you think gets left out? Middle Americans who proudly wave their pro-America values. Cancel culture in banking is corrosive. It limits your participation in a vibrant, free market economy. Fortunately, you can fight back. You now have the opportunity to invest in the bank that's investing in a fair American banking system, one based in freedom. Ownership in Old Glory Bank, the pro-America online bank, is here. Old Glory Bank is a full-service FDIC-insured bank that's the alternative to overreaching, un-American big banks. We stand for privacy, security, and liberty. We stand for freedom, family, faith, and the flag. We stand for all the values you stand for, and for the values big banks can't stand. So help keep banking in the hands of Main Street, not Wall Street. To invest in Old Glory Bank, go to oldglorybank.com.
Guys, catching people on the FBI's most wanted list is hard, but do you know what's not? Switching over to a Freedom First bank over at oldglorybank.com/loudmajority. Guys, go to oldglorybank.com. That's where I do my banking, and you guys should do it too. Guys, head on over to oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. So, it turns out mass racism, as we've been told exists in America, is an almost completely media-driven narrative. And when these sorts of facts were brought to light, it turns out Bakari Sellers over on CNN, he didn't handle it well. He really didn't handle it well. He almost made the Michael Jordan crying gif emoji come to life.
Starting around 2011, 2012.
Meh. Bakari's very sad.
Sociologists started to notice a shift in white liberal opinion polling to where white progressives became more extreme in their views on race than Black and Hispanic Americans. And they called this, the sociologists called it the Great Awakening. And when they postulated, where did this come from? Why did white progressives suddenly start obsessing over race in a way that was actually far to the left of where Hispanic and Black Americans were on this issue? They found that the media had shifted radically how it talked about these issues. So, for example, in 2010, the words white supremacy were mentioned 75 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times.
But the media is different from museums.
In 2020, the words white supremacy were mentioned 700 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times and 2,400 times in NPR. The word racism, 4,000 times in 2020. The words white and racial...
Look how sad he is. Look at how sad that man is.
...privilege from 2013 to 2019 grew by 1,500% in the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the word slavery itself exponentially skyrocketed as a percentage of words. I'm offering this only to suggest...
I understand. I'm just wondering
What do you think is the problem with talking about slavery, white supremacy, racism, et cetera?
So the point I'm trying to make here is that liberals will say, well, this is a reflection of reality, but of course it isn't. This is a reflection of a newfound obsession that was driven by the media, and that doesn't reflect either the moral evil of these things or the historical accuracy.
I do want to dive into what you mean by that, because you say that you don't think it's a reflection of reality. Based on what?
Well, slavery,
based on the idea that those things don't exist, that white supremacy doesn't exist, racism doesn't exist, that we shouldn't be talking about it anymore?
Based on the idea, obviously all these things I think are evil, but there's not more slavery now to the tune of
but I think part of the problem,
100% than there was
Batia, is that in the hold on a second, Bakari. Part of the problem is that back, not that long ago, in the 50s, 60s, even beyond that, when there was actual Jim Crow happening in this country, people were actually treating black people as second-class citizens. We weren't talking about those things at all.
But in
2013, those words were virtually never mentioned.
Abby, you don't
so is that better? Was it better then, or was it worse?
You don't think that 2013 is the same as the 1960s,
But you're missing,
right?
respectfully, and I've had this debate many times.
Do you really think that there's as big a difference between the 1960s and
I don't. That's not my point.
Okay.
My point is that the use of the language in present day, or the lack of the use of the language back when racism was apparent every single day in the streets of America, doesn't reflect really anything except perhaps a better awareness of the reality that we live in as a country.
Do you think the country was more racist in 2013?
That's not the point.
I didn't say anything about whether the country was more racist.
He just couldn't hold it in anymore. He just couldn't hold it in anymore and had to start yelling. Of course, Abby Phillip, who's been a victim of systemic racism here in America by going to Harvard and being given a primetime slot on America's oldest cable news channel, she's a victim of racism. But, it's almost like the more they push this narrative, the less power it actually has. I think there's a Star Wars reference there. Somebody asked Sean something about like galaxies and slipping through your fingers and all that. I don't watch Star Wars because I'm into girls. But I think there's a Star Wars reference there. But look, the more they push, the less teeth the sentence has, which gives people the opportunity to come out and talk about issues that actually matter. Yesterday's show, Ho Sweet Moses, my DMs were on fire with people calling me all sorts of Islamic names and and all this crap, calling me all sorts of vile crap. And then I watched Chris Cuomo's show. Now, many of you are wondering, Kevin, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing watching Chris Cuomo after he called you fat on Twitter, which is a thing that happened, actually? What? I mean, to be honest, I was kind of a dick to him first, but that's not really the point. What are you doing watching this show? And I tell people, I watch these shows so you all don't have to. And then I heard Chris Cuomo do this segment.
You remember that Islamist who drove a pickup truck with an ISIS flag attached through Bourbon Street, killing 14 people, injuring dozens and dozens more? You know, he's a citizen from Texas, right? And we used to see that as an irony, right? Wow, from Texas. That's like the last place you'd expect a Muslim extremist from, right? Wrong. Texas is ground zero for what I'm talking about. Did you know there's a push to create an Islamic residential development there? 1,000 homes, K through 12, faith-based school, a mosque, shops, insular community. What's wrong with that? Everything. Here, we assimilate. Here, the struggle is to remove the distinctions, the melting of the melting pot. That's what we're trying to reduce. The religious leader pushing for the project has openly admired the Muslim Brotherhood. Who are they? I'll tell you. Openly defended Hamas's killing of innocent civilians on October 7th. The developers initially advertised that the community would limit sales to only persons we believe will contribute to the overall makeup of our community. Meaning who? Reports say 75% of the housing fees will go to finance a local mosque, deterring non-Muslims, right? Now, before you say, hey, stop targeting Muslims, I'm not.
Okay? For me, I do not believe in demonizing an entire faith, and sure as hell, not all of the people who decide to believe in it. I agree that that is a mistake on both fronts. But remember what I said. The person who is the leader of this effort in Texas, what he said about Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. What is the goal of the Muslim Brotherhood? Reject Western influence, create Islamic governments around the world to enforce Sharia on societies. Many countries designate them as a terror agency. I'm shocked Trump hasn't.
Well, I didn't see that coming, Chris Cuomo. I didn't see that coming. I'm sure that segment has nothing to do with the fact that your brother is running against a Muslim for mayor of New York City. I'm sure that is not planned at all. But that's not really the point. The defanging of some of the most powerful words means that people aren't afraid to say what's true because they don't care. Chris Cuomo is right. This planned enclave, whatever the hell it is you want to call it, in Texas is dangerous. And it is antithetical to everything we believe in America. Because what we used to do in America, the melting pot, whatever the hell that means, you know, the melting pot, that thing you learned in like 4th grade that people continue to bring up because they stopped educating themselves after the age of 10. The melting pot used to be that we take all of the good parts of cultures and we bring it to America and we make a little melting pot. You know, not the ones where we form religious enclaves in the middle of Texas and only allow Muslims to live there and finance the Muslim Brotherhood, which has been designated a terrorist organization by Syria and the UAE, I think Yemen as well. Many Muslim nations consider the Muslim Brotherhood too extreme for them. I mean, it pains me to say it. It actually causes me. It's actually giving me agita to say, Chris Cuomo, you're right. Oh, I got to take an antacid now. Tasted like vinegar. It tasted like vinegar. Guys, we'll be right back because we've got more stories of this. We've got a Harvard researcher who got beat up in the Harvard yard. You know, Harvard, where all the rich white people decide to go to school and then, not care about black neighborhoods. We've also got Lee Zeldin going off the top rope again on the media. Lee, the legend, Zeldin. We're going to be getting to that. And what else we got? Stephen A. Smith on Ukraine. Ba-boom. Let's go, baby. Before we get to that, here's Jeremy.
Hey everyone, sorry to barge in like this, but I do want to talk to you about this opportunity for 45% off of everyday dose coffee. And this isn't just your regular coffee, folks. If you're like me, you love your coffee routine. I've loved my coffee routine since I was probably 16 years old. Unfortunately, as I've gotten older, some of the coffee that I love doesn't love me back and does cause bloating, does cause jitters, can only drink so much a day, and there's really only so much I can do with it. Now, everyday dose is known as coffee plus benefits. And what I mean by that, folks, is A, there is an ingredients booklet in there that gives you a ton of different recipes on how to make cold brew coffees of all different kinds, lattes, different hot coffees, and more. But the greatest thing about Everyday Dose is it is known as coffee plus benefits, meaning that you're going to have 100% Arabica coffee, and you're going to also have lion's mane, chaga, collagen protein, and nootropics that keep your brain focused. No jitters, no heart palpitations, and a ton of different recipes. And you're going to get a frother, a tumbler, a box set with a bunch of different gifts in it, an ingredients booklet for recipes, coffee, and more for only $27, folks. 45% off by going to everydaydose.com/LFATV. That's everydaydose.com/LFATV. Why not expand your experiences with coffee? That's everydaydose.com/LFATV.
So, guys, there's been a lot of talk of Elon and Doge and what did they actually do? What did they actually accomplish? Are any of the Doge cuts actually in law? Now, Look, do I think that a lot of the cuts that came out of Doge were incredibly important, particularly to terrifying organizations like USAID? Absolutely, and I think they were great, and I wish we would get more of them. But I think what it did was it gave an idea to the nation just about the amount of money we spend, the amount of just flat out this country spends money on. And since Doge has, I don't want to say ended, but left the public lexicon, one person has continued to karate chop the waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal government. And the more he finds, the less the media give him credit for finding. And of course, that would be my friend, the Long Island's favorite son. Sorry, Billy Joel, you're getting passed over for Lee Zeldin.
Many in the media want to say that there's no evidence of any waste or abuse. And then every time I provide more evidence of waste and abuse, they dig even deeper in saying there's no evidence of waste and abuse. I just want to give you an example of a couple of updates.
Yeah.
We're digging Power Forward Communities. This is an NGO that you just referenced, tied to Stacey Abrams. This entity received $100 in 2023. The Biden EPA gave them $2 billion in 2024, put in their grant agreement a requirement that they needed to complete training called How to Develop a Budget within 90 days.
Right.
So the Biden EPA said they didn't know how to develop a budget, and yet in that window, they were able to start spending down the balance, even though the Biden EPA figured that they needed more training. So this is Biden EPA reviewers. Quote, the salary structure for top officers seems high for a nonprofit, or rather high enough that it merits some explanation. I'm wondering if this could be a problem with public perception. Many of the costs are just presented, both little or no explanation as to why they are reasonable. They're paying their CEO $800,000, their COO $450,000, 22 people receiving over $150,000. And there's all different kinds of complaints, concerns expressed by Biden EPA officials saying, quote, executive salaries appear excessive. Another added that, quote, senior management salaries are seemingly high without justification. Now, I could go through 1,000 different examples of what I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
And the deeper that I get, the more that the New York Times and Politico and the Washington Post will say, there's no evidence. Well, what do you call everything that we're going through?
What do you call everything we're going through? Because that's what the media does. The media says, thing A isn't happening. Then when it's incontrovertible, they will say, well, thing A isn't that big of a deal. And then when we find out that it is a big deal, they go, well, we can't live without it. As a matter of fact, Megyn Kelly does a great breakdown of this on her show just the other day. Do I have that?
When Russiagate,
yep, here it is.
When Russiagate fell apart, and it was obvious that Mueller did not have the goods on Trump, Bill Maher had Eric Swalwell on and said to him, well, I don't need the Mueller report to.
This is in the context of the Russia hoax investigation. Watch the way they break down how the media is going over the new revelations with, and I'm going to stop calling it Russiagate because we need to start calling it what it is, Obamagate.
Know that he, meaning Trump, is a traitor. I have a TV. And as Taibbi put it, this has been his story ever since, and he too is sticking with it. I mean, that's like Bill, with all due respect to Bill, has been hashtag part of the problem on Russiagate. And therefore, not shockingly, I guess, cannot see its complete dismantling and really like all the motivations and the crafting of all the lies that are coming out day by day, like the revelations about the crafting. He cannot see it with objective eyes and maybe isn't even trying. I don't know. But like the sneering, oh, come on to you. It's on tape as though this has all been settled years ago. We saw and heard it with our own eyes and ears.
A lot of what these media people do, especially at the level of cable news and cable TV and network TV, is they give the audience permission to close its mind. You don't need to learn anything more about this. You already know. Stick with what we said 5 years ago, and we'll tell you if there's any revision. They do it with COVID. They do it with every issue. It always takes time. It always takes time to excavate the truth about issues, especially ones that have been presented as having only one side by the mainstream media. Then it takes years, between the establishment resistance and the media's resistance to get at the truth. Then as you get at it, they come out and say, it's old news. You already formed an opinion. Don't change it. If you want to change it, we'll let you know when. Until then, move on. And
we might change it when we get a new president in there who does exactly the same stuff, and then we'll see it entirely differently.
They give you permission to close your mind. And that's why, as I started the show off with, I think what Gavin Newsom is doing is actually incredibly potent. Going directly to the people, skipping the media, even though they're on his side, going directly to people and talking to them. Because the bottom line is, independent voices, independent names are getting bigger and bigger and bigger in this country. Need any proof of that? Here's Stephen A. Smith. You guys know Stephen A. I like to quote him and use his voice every now and again because he's not an inherently political figure, but has ventured into the world of politics, therefore bringing a new audience to the truth, or at least his version of the truth. Here was Stephen A. on Ukraine, just as an example.
We ain't gonna act like he caused this now. It's Democrats in office. It was Biden in office when a full-fledged war against Ukraine took place, courtesy of Russia's instigation, no matter what they try to say to Trump. It was Russia that invaded Crimea, and that was under the Obama administration. It was Clinton in office when you made a deal that disarmed the Ukraine and therefore weakened them, leaving them dependent on the United States. And now here they are having to beg for support that they're owed because of what we promised them as a nation. We promised them this. You owe it to the Ukrainians. You absolutely do. I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I like spending billions of our taxpayer dollars to them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is promises made are supposed to be promises kept.
And well, Stephen A. is close. Stephen A. is close with the first half of his rant and wrong with the last of it because I didn't agree to shit. I didn't agree to defend Ukraine in perpetuity. And for all of the people out there who think that we should be defending Ukraine, feel free to get on a flight to Kiev. I keep seeing videos of their nightclubs. They look like they're booming right now. While they draft 60-year-old men into service because they're running out of soldiers. But he's right. This is not Donald Trump's fault. But it's Donald Trump's cleanup on aisle Ukraine all over the place. And for the idiot liberals, he said he was going to end it on day one. Yeah, he was too busy fixing the problems at the border, using the America First policies to get that sort of thing done. And now we're getting word that apparently they're going to... this is absolutely hilarious. I think this is so funny. Apparently they're going to paint the border wall black. You know why? This is great. They're going to paint it black so it'll get extra hot in the summer so people can't climb over it. You're going to see people trying to scale that wall in, oven mitts. Absolutely hilarious. But that wasn't all. We, of course, also got... Stephen Miller on Hannity last night, as he normally does, going off the top rope on Democrats.
Here are the details. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, Homeland Security Advisor to the President, Stephen Miller. So I can sum up the Democrats this way, and we'll culminate this with the Mariachi Band. They lied for 4 years about the border being closed and secure. They never picked up a phone and called any of the family members that we know of. We know Biden and Harris and Mayorkas didn't. We know the Democrats wouldn't stand at a joint session speech of President Trump for Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungary's family. And they're the party of Abrego Garcia and Mariachi bands. What should now happen to these mayors and these governors?
The Democrat Party
is an extremist organization, Sean. It's not a political party in any normal sense of the word. A political party represents Americans. It represents law-abiding citizens. All you see all day long are crazy Democrats screeching on TV on behalf of foreign terrorists, hardened criminals, and violent illegal aliens. A political party exclusively dedicated to protecting terrorists, criminals, gangbangers, and murderers. That's what they become. These sanctuary city mayors, DOJ's been very clear. They had a deadline and they violated it. They had a deadline to comply with federal law and hand over the criminal illegal aliens in their custody, the child rapists, the child predators, the drug traffickers, the human traffickers. The sanctuary cities, like Boston, refused to turn over these menacing threats to public safety. And so now they face not only revocation of funds, not only the loss of taxpayer support, but also potential criminal charges for harboring and smuggling. This is as real as it gets, Sean. The Department of Justice laid out to these mayors how they were breaking our laws, and they refused to change their policy, and Attorney General Bondi is going to see this thing through to the end.
Well, to me, it's aiding and abetting. If I went down to the border and if I were to
Of course it's aiding and abetting. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what they're talking about, Mayor Wu, she held a press conference saying how she was going to dissent and she was going to stand up to the authoritarian blah, 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 blah of Donald Trump. And, of course, she had to do this with the help of a mariachi band. Because nothing says we stand up for the dignity of Mexican people like this.
Everybody, hoo-hoo-ya, hoo-hoo-ya. El flautín. Del pastor. Que a la real canta así.
Look, I had to watch it so you guys do too. I can't imagine why we don't take those people seriously. Now, Mayor Wu, she was very upset about the authoritarian takeover of Washington, D.C. By Donald Trump. Now, we've been going over crime statistics on all of these shows for the last several days now about how D.C. has gotten significantly safer. But what about the nice areas? You know, Georgetown has always been safe. What about the parts of Boston where the rich people live? You know, like Harvard. Let's say you were going to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and you wanted to study at an overpriced school that you're going to be paying student loan debt for the rest of your life. Let's say you wanted to do that. You probably wouldn't think that while you were crossing through Harvard Yard that you'd get your face bashed in. But turns out
they just punched me. I didn't fight back.
That's why 35-year-old Tiago Rentz, a Harvard researcher from Brazil, has this black eye. He says it happened early Thursday morning inside the Boston Common AMC Theater. A group of teenagers were being loud, clapping and screaming, so he asked them to be quiet. When that didn't work, he tried again.
I asked them for respect. I asked them to leave the theater because we just wanted to watch the movie.
After the 9:45 p.m. horror movie Weapons finished, the violence off-screen started as the crowd was leaving the second-floor theater.
They made like a wall. So I tried to pass, to leave, and they couldn't let me pass.
His friend didn't want to show her face, but tells us what she remembers seeing and hearing.
Let's go outside to solve this. That's what I remember. When I looked back, they were already like hitting him in the head, and like I saw 4. I think there were more. I think 5 maybe.
I was like scared, and I just faced the wall, and I just protected my face and my head.
His friend ran for help but had no luck at first. Eventually, she found a cleaning lady who led them to a security guard.
Then after 30 minutes or more, the police came to get my statement.
According to...
Now, I don't want to put too fine a point on it. They don't mention who the assailants were. They don't. But they were talking and being loud in a movie theater, so you can probably figure out who that is. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Guys, before we wrap up today, I do have some good news that I want to share with all of you, and this is why I push so hard on this show for you to get out of your houses, to get active in your particular areas. Because it turns out, over the course of the last 4 years, you want to know what's happened? 30 states, including the District of Columbia, have lost 2.1 million registered Democrats as voter registration efforts are going on all over the country. Hell, I've got one on Sunday in Wisconsin here on Long Island. The Sunday after that, I'll be in Ronkonkoma. The week after that, I'll be in East Northport. I can't stop, won't stop, always keep going. The Democratic Party is facing a steep loss in registered voters across the United States, with 30 states that track voter registration by political parties, revealing that the party lost ground to the GOP in every single state. So there are only 30 states out there that track your voter registration based on your political party. And in all 30 of them, the Democrats have lost registered voters. Now, should you take this as a win? No. You should, all gas, no brakes, keep going. If you're not involved yet, get involved. While there were still more registered Democrats in America, the party went from having an 11-point lead over the GOP on Election Day 2020 in those states with party registrations to a 6-point lead in 2024. They lost 5 points in just the number of total registered voters, as Democrats continue to become less and less effective in garnering their message. Guys, it's all gas, no brakes. Get out there, get active, get involved. Or quite frankly, get out. It's your country. And it's up to you to do more. You want to vote more than once? Then go register voters. You want to vote more than once? Get your kids, get their friends registered to vote. I can promise you the majority of them are not. Guys, it's 4 o'clock. I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. The Great Pete Santilli's coming up next right here on LFA TV. Guys, before you head out, head on over to LoudMajorityUSA.com. If you would like to support the show, if you've already got all the merchandise, bing, click that donate button at the very top. Become a monthly donor over here. $5, $10 a month, whatever you guys can afford. I really, really do appreciate it. I will catch you guys back live tomorrow. Until then, everybody, stay loud.